we approach the final weeks of our course, we end it with a discussion of a very important topic. And that topic deals with the content in Chapter 10, which surrounds that of middle school leadership. Establishing an exemplary middle school is a wonderful thing, but maintaining an exemplary program for decades or longer is an extremely difficult thing to achieve, but it's so important. And ultimately, there are many leadership factors that research has demonstrated contribute to the long-term health of an exemplary middle school. A study of these factors identified as many as a dozen, and among the most significant are those that are listed on this slide, and they are support of the central office and of the colleagues in other schools, a focus of continuing improvement, establishing the most exemplary program possible at the very start, not waiting on things, but making sure you're establishing the most exemplary program from the outset, and carefully plan staff development without expecting miracles to happen. Planning is critical. Two factors explain a great deal more of the long-term success of high-quality middle schools. The first is a school-wide vision built solidly on a compassionate understanding of the characteristics and needs of young adolescents. And this comes from hiring colleagues that embody that very vision. And that has come from the top down. The administration has to embody that, and they will then identify and hire faculty and staff that embody that same compassion. And the second is not second in importance. It's equally important, and it's so valuable. And it's the title of this very slide, shared decision making. Without real shared decision making, exemplary middle schools really won't be viable for long periods of time. So what does shared decision making entail? It means having regular, honest, systematic, frequent problem solving decision making, policy setting, and collaborative group meeting that brings together leaders from the administration, the classroom, and other areas of the school community. That is so important because A, it ensures that everyone's voices are heard. And when more voices are heard, there are more opinions than to let influence the process. You have more to choose from, more to think about. And so better decisions are then made because all of the options have been put on the table and they've all been vetted. And you end up having more stakeholders in the process who will invest in making sure different initiatives are carried out and who will also promote those initiatives throughout the community. So shared decision making is absolutely critical. Shared decision making. What research has shown that in middle schools, authoritarian, control oriented leadership has been shown to have a negative effect on the ways in which teachers and administrators work toward maintaining an exemplary middle school. Really, what middle schools need is spirited, visionary leadership. And really, this is going to require that there's some broader school-wide group of leaders. And these can go by many different names, but some that are common are the Program Improvement Council, known as the PIC Committee, or the Building Leadership Team, known as the BLT. When you have a PIC or BLT committee, it's going to have regular members. Who are these regular members? Usually team leaders in the school. The team leaders in the school could be the chairs for each department. It could also comprise of some central staff members as well, and those in school administration. And there would be representatives from special education and your art programs as well. The school guidance counselor would also be a member. In some schools, parents and students are also representatives. And anybody who's a representative gets to have a vote on policies. And each of the representatives' vision and decision making is informed by their constituents. So if you're a chair of the math department, all the math faculty would let the chair of that department know what they would like concerning curriculum and interdisciplinary teams, all of that. And then their representative would then vote according to what they have decided is their unified goal. So for this PIC committee, though, to really make a difference, they have to meet regularly. And the way in which they meet has to be very carefully planned and orchestrated. And you'll notice there's an agenda, a sample agenda for a meeting, a PIC meeting on page 560. That agenda is not only carefully planned, so is the physical setup of shared decision making meetings. How so? Well, they're held in public places so that anybody can attend. They're not closed meetings. So even if you don't have the ability to vote on a particular issue, you can still attend. And there would be open forums also where people could voice their concerns or opinions so that all those with the voting privilege can hear that. So the beautiful thing about shared decision making, and especially when you have a program improvement council or building leadership team, they want to hear everyone's voice, and they honor and reflectively consider those opinions when they are making decisions. Nothing is closed and nobody takes their leadership for granted. They realize that it has an impact on everybody in the school, and they take that role as representative very, very seriously. But again, these program improvement councils, building leadership teams, they have to meet regularly, and they do so in an open and transparent way in order to promote school vision, school unity, and overall mission. We began our discussion back in chapter 1 of how the middle school concept emerged. We talked about how much of it was based on some national reports, one of which was called A Nation at Risk, which showed U.S. schools to be deficient academically from K to post secondary ed. That was alarming to realize that we were deficient and behind leading countries. And so the middle school concept emerged from that. And its primary emphasis was to raise academic achievement. And we have seen the academic emphasis infiltrate schools with the high degree of state graduation tests and high stakes tests that have been really important to all the schools. I mean, that's how they acquire some funding. It's also how they promote themselves and maintain student retention. But ultimately, student learning is our chief goal. So there was a study done by the authors of this book, and they studied in right about the turn of the year 2000, 50 middle school principals who were under pressure to ensure that academic achievement scores went up in their schools. And the goal of this study was to identify the strategies that they used for successfully raising academic achievement. And these are strategies that have proved useful at the middle school level, but they could certainly prove useful at the elementary and high school level as well. So we're going to unpack those here. The first one was utilizing a breakthrough planning process. What does this mean? This usually starts with the annual school improvement plan, and it includes a great deal of departmental involvement and team input from planning, monitoring, and adjusting the curriculum, as well as instruction and programs to make sure that they foster higher academic standards. It then really requires improving the school climate because you can't have everybody invested and willing to plan, monitor, and adjust the curriculum as well as their instruction and programs without strengthening the school climate and building faculty cohesiveness. That faculty cohesiveness is so important to improving student behavior management. And so improving the school climate through allowing a lot of collaborative efforts, whether that's through co-planning, co-teaching, having different opportunities for faculty and staff to foster their own relationships. So providing relationship building, professional development times, those are going to be absolutely critical to improving the school climate, but also allowing the students to have opportunities to build relationships and community. We know that happens through advisory groups, but having intentional times throughout the school year where they work as homeroom teams in a school Olympics or various types of activities like that, build community and to foster the group norms that you have set in place. Another strategy for raising academic achievement involves the strategic use of school achievement data. It's so important that assessment systems are put in place so that administration can disaggregate the data. What does that mean? That means looking at achievement data based on different characteristics on gender, socioeconomic status, grade level, ethnicity, because when you break down by groups, you might find that there's a certain subset that's really achieving a lot, and another group that's not, and that will allow you to put in some extra targeted supports for those students. I mentioned professional development already in terms of providing opportunities for faculty and staff to form a sense of community, but you also need professional development that's aimed at helping them to raise the academic bar for their students. And this could just be in way of here are some new tech tools that have great test prep um, features, but without proper training, these teachers are not going to be able to put them effectively into place. So when there are best practices available, you have to, as a leader within the school or on the team of leaders, particularly if you're on the building improvement plan, you have to intentionally work to have set aside time where faculty can collaboratively explore these different measures, because then there is support for one another when these meetings aren't set aside for focused training. They can go to one another for help. It also involves curriculum alignment. That means aligning the curriculum with state standards and state and national assessments. We want to make sure that what we're teaching is valuable to the students in terms of testing, because these testing have high stakes. If we're not going to be able to graduate or get into college without good performance on these tests, and we certainly need to be teaching to the test to a certain extent, making sure that the material that's on them is covered and covered well. Finding additional time for learning. There's so much to cover. Sometimes you can't do it all within the course of a day. Using your advisory groups or after school activities to provide times for enrichment or extra time where you can have these great little exploratory learning activities for students to engage in is critical. Making sure that you integrate the middle school concept. That interdisciplinary nature of the middle school concept is so important, because not only does it help students to make those connections, but it helps teachers to continue to connect and plan together so that they make sure they are teaching to the standards and that they are teaching the material that the students need for key assessments. We are so much better when we work together. You know, one teacher alone can do great things, but as a team, you can do amazing things. So I think working together, you leverage all the gifts that everybody brings to the table. Now, this next one might seem strange, promoting testing. What does that mean? That simply just means make sure that you are equipping all the stakeholders with what they need to prepare these students for tests, not just the teachers, their parents too. Using systems like First in Math or Accelerated Reader, these supplemental systems which help students to become more acclimated to multiple choice tests, to time tests, but they do so in a fun way where students can win prizes or get certificates, and the stakes aren't high. If they don't, so what? There's only something to gain by the extra time put in. But this really helps to reduce test anxiety, because time tests, multiple choice tests, those just become a regular fabric of students' day-to-day life. And you can get community stakeholders too to invest. With Accelerated Reader or Weekly Reader, you have Pizza Hut who offers coupons. So if you get your community involved too, that creates more of that sense of shared leadership and shared accountability, and the students really gravitate to that. Changing the school leadership. This comes back full circle with making sure that the responsibility is shared, that your administration is involving all the voices in the school. That has to be done because we are there to raise academic achievement, and who is at the center of that? Teachers. The teachers' voices, having faculty involved in decision making, curricular planning, that has to be so important and paramount within middle schools. And so shared leadership has to be a continual focus. In the application of systems theory in the world of organizational behavior indicates that schools as organizations, because they are organizations, come in three types. One, there's the reactive school. It's a place without a vision or leadership. Policies and procedures are not in place, creating a sense of desperation and faculty frustration. Cynicism pervades the school. Authoritarian leadership can sometimes create the reactive school. And some of you may have gone to schools that you feel emanated this type of climate. Then there's the responsive school. Responsive school, problems and ideas are approached in a systematic way. Faculty are heard, but support and decisions are greatly influenced from outside the school. And this could come from stakeholders like board members and other people in the community who might fund the school. This could typically be encountered maybe in a private school where you have community stakeholders who do provide a lot of funding. So the important thing here is to make the faculty and staff feel as though their voice and their vision has an equitable say in what things are occurring. That's generally not the case in a responsive school, so that would be something that is missing or void there. The generative school. This is the ideal. All members are contributing to a shared long-term vision. Support, professional development, and leadership opportunities are encouraged, and short and long-term goals are met. All participants in the school and community understand the responsibility, commitment, and work needed to create this exemplary middle school. And to create the generative school, ultimately, at the foundation is shared leadership, which we've discussed quite a bit in this presentation. What we're going to do for the remainder of the course is look at some outside readings outside of our textbook that talk about how you can cultivate good, high quality shared leadership. And that's not just something we know that comes from an administrator. It's something that's born into and cultivated within the faculty. It's cultivated within you. So I'm excited for you to continue to delve into this idea of leadership because I believe each and every one of you are called to be great, bold, and compassionate leaders in your future schools.